I'm kind of passing along a question I read on X, and I'd like to see if how you like my answers. And this is someone saying that when Jesus was asked why he used parables, he quoted Isaiah and said, "Well, if I didn't use parables, they would turn and believe and be forgiven." And so he was saying this means that they could believe without regeneration. And on one hand, I was saying that because of their upbringing as a covenant people, they already had a kind of theological education that would give them a little bit of what we get from regeneration. And on the other hand, it's kind of like having a combined class of kindergartners and eighth graders, and then teaching one thing, and then taking the eighth graders and giving them extra, to where what was taught to the kindergartners can still be applicable for them at a lower level. And
thankfully you gave the text, so I didn't have to search very long to get it. The text that you're referring to is, "Therefore I speak them in parables," Matthew 13:13, "because while seeing they do not see, and while hearing they do not hear, nor do they understand. And in them the prophecy of Isaiah is being fulfilled, which says, you will keep on hearing, but you will not understand. You will keep on seeing, but will not perceive. For the heart of this people has become dull, and with their ears they scarcely hear, and they have closed their eyes, lest they would see with their eyes, hear with their ears, and understand with their heart, and return, and I would heal them." So here's the problem. Jesus is saying that this is judgment. And in fact, here's the problem. They are taking the citation from Isaiah 6 and turning it into a hypothetical. That's not what's going on in Isaiah 6, and it's not what's going on in Matthew 13. The immediate fulfillment in Matthew chapter 13 is, why are you using parables? And his answer is, it's part of judgment. And that judgment is going to be seen very, very plainly in about 40 years, when Jerusalem was a smoldering ruin. But the point is, in the Gospels, the parables are judgment, and the kingdom message is reserved for the followers of the Messiah. The citation from Isaiah 6 is to demonstrate that this is Jesus' own fulfillment language, that this has been the state of Israel for a very long time. They hear, they understand, they see, they do not perceive. The heart of this people has become dull. This is a real example of the depravity of man. But then they go, but lest they would see with their eyes, hear with their ears, understand with their heart, and return, I would heal them. Oh, see, they have the ability to do this in and of themselves. Well, that's not what's being addressed. That's not what's being addressed in Isaiah 6. Because when Isaiah is sent as a prophet, this is his message. This is why Isaiah says in his commissioning as a prophet, "How long, O Lord?" Because he can tell he's being sent with a message of judgment. So none of the text is sitting there, is even entertaining this topic. This topic is addressed in other passages, in Romans 3 or in Romans 1. It's addressed in Romans 8. No one is able to do these things. That's where the specific topic would be addressed. This is a hypothetical. Well, lest they would see with their eyes and hear with their ears and understand with their heart and return, I would heal them. That must mean that they have this capacity. That's not what's being addressed. What's being addressed is that what is happening to Israel, even with the law being read in the temple, with the presence of the sacrifices, and with the covenant scriptures being possessed by these people, they have turned against these things. And if you go back and read Deuteronomy 28 and 29, it's perfectly consistent that this is what's going to happen to a people who turn from their God. And so the judgment that came upon Israel in the Old Testament was just and was a part of God's plan in bringing the Messiah about. But it's not a hypothetical that says, oh, well, they possess this capacity innately. Any person, even though they are under God's judgment, can throw off God's judgment, and have spiritual understanding and all the rest of this kind of stuff. That's not even what's being addressed there. So this is one of those many topics where it's people don't like to hear this because they want an apologist like me to always give them the bullets for their gun to shoot their opponent dead. Okay? That's what they want. They don't want to hear that, to be perfectly honest with you, especially when it comes to subjects like God's judgment and holiness, what happened in the Old Testament, the destruction of the Amorites, the justice of the flood, every man, woman, and child. The only people you can have meaningful conversations about those things with are people who are submitted to what God has revealed in Scripture. And people who are not, people who hold higher authorities, people who have already said, I'm not going to believe in a God like that. You can point them to the Scriptures, but you're not going to convince them. And you're not going to change their minds. And nothing I say or anybody else could say can change their minds. And as a young apologist, that frustrated me. But that is a necessary thing to come to understand, or you're going to live a very frustrated life. And I would too. So, this morning I hopped into X. I was looking for something, and the thought crossed my mind. I'm being hit with error after error after error after error, and every error that I saw coming from Mormons and from Roman Catholics, I had addressed in published works and refuted decades ago. Now, I can either sit there and go, well, that was worthless. I've accomplished nothing. Or I can go, well, we've been right over the target all along. And it's up to the Lord at that point. So, is that helpful at all?
Yeah, I just found it a little ironic that in order to try to rebuke regeneration, he was pointing to a verse that clearly showed sovereign decree, but he was calling it temporary judicial hardening.
Yes, well, I know who calls it that. That's a provisionist saying. That's Leighton Flowers. That's his big thing.
Yeah, it's a Soteriology 101 fan.
Yes. Okay, Peter. Appreciate the question.
Thank you.
All right. God bless.